welcome back to Fanboy Media. In this episode, we're celebrating vincru12000's 450 subs and his contest. So congratulations, Mike. Been following you for probably about a year. Enjoy watching your bitches, back issue comic hauls that you do every week. A lot of fun, and I really was intrigued by your contest, and while a little late, I hope you might find some of my answers interesting to your questions. Your first question was, what is your forecast for the comic book industry in the next 2 to 3 years? To be honest, for me, that's a little, maybe even a little too narrow. I was thinking of things along the lines of you're going to start to see stickers on CGC slabs saying whether it's a premium grade for what's on the label or it's the lower end for what that label is. In other words, if it's graded 8.5, is it really an 8.4? Is it really an 8.6? If you were getting into that type of granularity. And I believe I've actually seen some of these showing up. We'll probably see more self-slabbing in the next couple of years, where companies will start selling slabbing kits, and you can throw your own books into slabs. And with the number of sort of these mystery slabbers, maybe that's already happening, hard to tell. Part of my gut feeling is, while Marvel and DC have announced all these movies up to, I think, 2020 or 2025, I think that's maybe a bit of ambitious for them. It wouldn't surprise me if some of these start getting cancelled or juggled around, depending on how the forthcoming movies go that already have started in production. Tough call, but that's some thoughts. I'm not sure what else I can really think of for the next 2 to 3 years. The next question, is there a bubble in the comic book industry? I'd have to say there is absolutely a bubble in the comic book industry. Everywhere I look, both high-end, low-end, watching YouTube videos, what the comic book stores are doing, there seems to be more focus on other things than what is printed on the paper. If people start considering things more than what's actually just printed on the paper, then you're starting to get in this bubble territory. You're starting to get into these speculations. Nowadays, second printings, third printings are fetching more money than first printings. If a first printing is $1 book and they're trying to charge $10 for a second print just because it's a lower print run, you're not really evaluating on what the content of the book is, what the artwork, the story, and stuff like that. If it's a $1 book, based on its own merits, and only because of print run, people are trying to justify higher cost. It just sort of reminds me back in the 90s with the old Valiants that had, I think it was 25,000 print run, which was very, very small, of course, for the 90s. They were selling for $100+, and then people realized, well, nobody wants these books, and so all of a sudden these $100 books are selling for $1.50. I'm seeing that same type of trend that I can identify. I also look at things like the Action Comics #1 that just sold for $3.2 million. I really didn't think it would go that high. The difference between the Nicolas Cage copy and that copy was white pages from Off-White, I think. So just for page quality, you jump up $1 million. It's not even the best copy known to exist. I can't fathom $3.2 million for that book. The Edgar Church copy, to the best of my recollection, is supposed to be estimated. It's not graded, but estimated at a 9.6, which would make a 9.0 just look silly. So what would the Edgar Church copy be worth? $10-20 million, but I have a hard time seeing a comic book selling for $10-20 million. I know it's sort of what's available at the time and stuff like that, but I just see people buying more books based on hope and perception, just like sports cards was in the 80s, comic books in the 90s, where people are just taking these sort of almost random guesses at investments that really aren't that sound. I hope I kind of rambling on a little bit, but all to say is I absolutely do believe there's a bubble in the comic book industry. When one night something's $1 book, the next day it's $100 book. There's some, it's not what's printed on the paper. To me, the comic book industry and the rock solid collectors that have maintained themselves for 20, 30 years are the people that evaluate what's on the paper. Do you like the artwork? Do you like the story? And that's what you judge a book and the book's value. If you start considering speculation, movies, print runs, and stuff like that, you're no longer concerned about what the book is actually about. And I believe that, for me, is what defines a bubble. I hope that's clear enough. Next, what are my suggestions for the big three publishers? It's kind of an interesting question. I don't read a ton of DC. I've started reading more now than I have in the past. I'm not sure I have a whole lot to say for DC because of that. I do like the fact that a lot of their books are sticking to the $2.99. I do like you frequently get some higher quality covers, glossier stock covers and stuff like that. I can't think of anything immediately for DC. Marvel, first thing I would say for Marvel is stop these giant story arcs that take a year to tell or longer. They've been doing this for as long as I can remember, and it just makes some books almost unreadable because they're just being drawn down by all the other crap that they're trying to throw into this story arc. The classic I always remember back in the late 80s, I think it was this time sled that ran through pretty much all the Marvel titles at the time, and I just remember for a year Marvel was just unreadable. Like, it was just all trash. And I find too, like even with the recent Original Sin, interesting premise, but the story's just dragged. I mean, it was pointless in the end. I mean, I forget what there were, like 40 books in the run. It just dragged. It was pointless. I wish they would just stop doing that. And my suggestion for Image, I've heard a lot of people talking about no number ones and stuff like that. Cut down the number of number ones. I think first things you got to acknowledge with Image is just strictly a printer and a distribution company. They're not actually responsible for the content themselves. They partner up. They are a partner for smaller companies to submit content, have it printed, and distributed. So that's kind of tough because that means basically telling them to cut down the number of partners they have. And I don't think that will really work, and I don't think that's fair to the partners or really fair to even the comic book readers, because you don't know what gems you might miss. But what I would suggest for Image is that with their partners, that they try to enforce and strongly encourage a regular 12-issue delivery within the year. Because all the content's coming from these smaller publishers or smaller content owners, things tend to get delayed. So you'll be looking for a book every month, but it might not come out every month. I love Saga, and I understand Fiona Staples and Vaughn are very busy people and deserve a break, but as a fan, I get disappointed that there's, I think, only 9 issues a year. I would love them to go to a full 12-issue-a-year schedule. So that's my suggestion for image. Who would I want to paint my one and only portrait? Kind of an interesting question, and I must admit, my first instinct was not actually a comic book artist at all, and it was Carl Brender's. I just threw up a random image I pretty much picked off Google image search. He's a traditional painter, does artwork and prints and stuff like that. But he's probably the best mixed media artist that I'm aware of. His pieces are the closest to photorealistic that I've ever seen. Now, I know that's maybe not quite the direction that this question was looking for. So if I had to probably pick a comic book artist, I'm thinking I'd probably just go with a classic Jack Kirby. If I can't be myself, then might as well get the master of that super heroic pose, and get that sort of real action power type of thing going for me. Build me up for the future. Who know? Those who never actually knew me. But there you go. My pick. I'll go with Jack Kirby. The next thing, you were asking us which books we would pick. And the first one was Showcase number 4 or Fantastic Four number 1. This is a case of, it's an easy choice for me. I've already made it. So since you're offering us upgrades, I'll take an upgrade to Fantastic Four number 1. Mine's a bit of a beater, and I would love to own a high grade copy at some point. The next one, Batman number 1 or Amazing Spider-Man number 1. That was actually a tough choice. I do have a passing interest of Batman. I haven't sort of gone overboard. If you look at my collection, I maybe have 200 Batmans versus probably like 2,000 Fantastic Fours. So, which is probably giving you a hint of what I would actually pick. Plus second, even if I don't own either of these books at the moment, but if we look at reprints, I do own a reprint of one of these 2 books, and I would be picking Amazing Spider-Man number 1. Reason, it's probably the most expensive Fantastic Four book in existence. I believe Amazing Spider-Man number 1 still does command more than Fantastic Four number 1, and it is a key appearance that I do not actually own at this point, but I do plan to own hopefully in the next couple of years. So that's my choice. Next one, TMNT number 1 or Walking Dead number 1. Neither title I'm particularly interested in. I would have to say, of the 2, I would pick the TMNT number 1. I don't actually own a copy, so I just threw a copy of the Turtles Adventures as my placeholder for this one. Part of that is, I believe, since I don't have a personal interest in either of these titles, I would go with the proven book, the one that has sort of 30 years behind it. And so even if I don't want it and I had to sell it, I believe that there's a value there. Looking at Walking Dead number 1, I've watched the TV series. I enjoy it. I watch it with a friend of mine, but I have no particular desire to buy the book. I must admit, when I first heard a book that's less than 10 years old was selling for, $1,800, that didn't make sense to me, and that sort of also leads into the bubble question. I can't fathom any book published in the last 10 years that should be costing you more than a low-grade Fantastic Four number 1. Just doesn't make sense to me. If I had that kind of money, I'd be pouring it back into my Fantastic Four collection. But even in the short while that I've watched, more out of curiosity, the Walking Dead number 1s, I remember I have seen 8.1s sell for, like I said, about $1,800. I've seen them recently selling as low as $800, so they're definitely on the slide down. my personal gut feeling, maybe this ties into the forecasting too. I do believe in the long run, Walking Dead is going to be sort of a $200 book. 9.8s might fetch 300, but it's going to be in that sort of general $200 area. I know a lot of people disagree with me, but there are still plenty of copies when compared to the actual diehard fans that actually want them. It seems to me that most copies are in the hands of people who are just trying to make money on them. So they're either stores or just individuals that are just in it for the money. They're not craving the issue themselves. They don't want it. So time will tell. Last one, New Mutants 98 or Batman Harley Quinn #1. Another no-brainer for me, and I already have my choice. It's the Batman Harley Quinn #1. I think it's a great book. I do enjoy the Alex Ross art on the cover. I have no interest whatsoever to New Mutants 98. To me, that's just sort of like, here's a roll of toilet paper, or here's a Batman Harley Quinn. If I was out of toilet paper, I might take the New Mutants 98. To me, it's nothing. It's vapor. It's extraneous. And I believe that's the end of your questions. So I hope you enjoyed some of my answers. I know maybe some of them are a little controversial, but hey, it's one man's opinion. But congratulations, Mike, vincru12000 on your 450 subs, and I'm sure you're probably a lot higher than that now. So congratulations to, or good luck, I should say, to everyone who enjoys the contest. I've been enjoying the entries that I have seen so far. So thank you very much.